South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
In recent months, there has been much speculation about the referendum, which will determine the UK's fate within the European Union. But will Brexit really be bad for Ireland? My first guest this morning, John McGrane, from the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce, will be sharing his thoughts, and he will be explaining how the outcome of the vote on June 23rd will impact the Irish business community. John will be discussing the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce, which you co-founded in 2011, and the upcoming Brexit vote throughout the interview. But you've enjoyed a career which has taken you from the financial services sector to a new tech startup.
I have, Karl, and I'm thankfully in a position where I can say I've made great friends and done great business down the years with all walks of life, but mostly characterised by working with great businesses around the country. The start of my career was my mammy got me a job in 1974 because there was only a few jobs in Ireland at that stage, and I joined Ulster Bank. And I worked with great people both inside the bank and in terms of our customers the length and breadth of the country, SMEs and local traders and international traders. And I worked with great people who advised them, like accountants and solicitors and all the rest. So I learned a lot about my relationships with business from that source. And after 40 years, I had the opportunity to move on and retire just 2 years ago and move into starting a new technology business of my own called NSI, which helps organisations to run better. We turn not-for-profits into not-for-losses by helping them to run a shared services model so that they can grow their business without some of the costs that burden some other organisations. And alongside all of that, I've worked very closely with chambers of commerce for many years. I'm on the board of Dublin Chamber and very closely associated with chambers around the country. So I've had the opportunity as well to be involved in the formation of the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce.
Now, in Chamber of Commerce terms, the British-Irish organisation is very young, as it was just set up in 2011. What prompted you to set up the organisation at that particular time?
Well, so one of the standing jokes is, where was the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce for the previous 796 years? Whatever about all of that, it became apparent 5 years ago on the occasion of the state visit by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth to Ireland on that historic occasion, that for all of the business being done between Britain and Ireland, there wasn't actually any organisation that had the particular focus on that trade between the two islands, despite the fact that Britain is easily Ireland's largest two-way trading partner, supporting trade every week of more than 1.2 billion euros between us and supporting more than 400,000 jobs equally split between the two islands. So it seemed like high time that a few of us would come together and put an organisation together to champion that trade, to make sure nobody took anything from it, and to try and grow it by all possible means. And along with a small number of other people, when I was in Ulster Bank at that stage, we were the founding members of the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce, and we've gone from strength to strength over the last 5 years, I'm glad to say. Now,
looking at your membership profile, does it consist of Irish companies that regularly trade in the UK, or most members have a presence on the ground in the UK? Or are you finding that a lot of your members are UK companies?
So the British Irish Chamber of Commerce, Karl, stands for businesses that have interests in the business of the two islands. It doesn't require a business on either side to be already operating in the other side, but it will always speak to issues of common interest on the two islands. So we have lots and lots of businesses who do indeed have a business footprint and activity on both islands, but we've many more on both sides who are interested in developing their trade into the other side to effectively trade with the next country as easily as if it was the next county. And I'm glad to say just yesterday, working with our friends in UK Trade and Investment at the British Embassy in Dublin, we hosted a visit by 34 UK SMEs to come to Ireland to create new trading relationships with people that we can introduce them to here. That would be very typical of what we'd be about.
Now, with over 1.2 billion euros worth of trade being conducted between Ireland and the UK every week, there is no denying that our business relations with our nearest neighbours are critical to our economy. However, is it possible that the outcome of Brexit on June 23rd could jeopardise the strength of this relationship, John?
Well, Brexit is a really important matter for all of our interests. First of all, this isn't about a fear thing, and it's definitely not about being alarming. It's more about illuminating the matter for people who are now beginning to say, gosh, what on earth could happen if the UK people, in whose sole right it is to exercise their vote on the 23rd of June, if they choose to leave the European Union? Ireland has a fantastic relationship with both the European Union and the United Kingdom. And from the Chamber of Commerce's point of view, our view would certainly be that Europe would be much worse off without the UK at its core as an active member. And from the British Irish Chamber's point of view, Chamber of Commerce point of view, we definitely want to see the United Kingdom stay within the European Union for the benefit of us all.
Now, we've been hearing the arguments for and against Brexit over the last number of months. But if the UK vote to leave the EU, how will it affect Irish businesses on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so first of all, Karl, nothing will happen overnight. And this is the start of a process whereby we deal with the consequences in quite a systematic way. The European Union's rules provide for a minimum of a 2-year, if you like, cooling off period should somebody choose to leave. It's never been done before. And during that minimum 2-year period, the very considerable, extensive work that would analyse the consequences of that leave decision gets to be attended to. But it is a leap into the unknown, and lots of people on both sides of the argument feel strongly that we're going to take quite some time to understand the implications. But I can tell you, from the point of view of most businesses, while we don't know just how damaging it could be, we know it couldn't be better than the situation that we have today. Because today you've got a single market, warts and all, we acknowledge that, and our job is to try and fix that rather than run away from it. But at least we do have a single market that creates open trade across the entire union. For a member to leave it, it's very difficult for anybody to bring forward a solution that says they could be better off outside.
And what concerns are your members coming to you with regarding Brexit?
Well, the most persistent concern in business is always uncertainty. Business is pragmatic. Entrepreneurs, the length and breadth of the country and the two islands are always going to be practical people who will respond to things that come along. The most difficult thing is a situation where you don't know what's going to happen. And a lot of commentators are saying that whatever about a 2-year cooling off period, the actual unwinding of the UK's relationship with the European Union could take as much as 10 years to go through all of its different machinations, etc., etc. And that's the enemy of business confidence, the enemy of business investment, and the enemy of business job creation.
If the UK leaves the EU and implements a European Economic Agreement with the EU, similar to the current agreements Norway and Iceland, it would minimise the potential damage to the Irish economy, wouldn't it?
There's a myth around the whole idea of Norway and other such situations like Switzerland and indeed most recently Canada. They have trade agreements with the European Union, but they're not free trade agreements. Norway has to comply with all of the European legislation, even though it doesn't have any say in the creation of it, and that's forever into the future. Norway has to pay into the European Union. In fact, it pays per capita more into the European Union than the UK pays. And Norway has specific exclusions in terms of what it can sell into the European Union. So, for instance, Norwegian food and fish, very important to the Norwegian economy, is not covered by the agreement. As a result, exports of smoked salmon from Norway into the European Union incur a penalty or a levy of 12%. And in return, Norway imposes a tax of 300% on imports of French cheese. So that's not a good example of anything that the United Kingdom would want to follow. And Michael Gove, for the Leave side in the United Kingdom, was using examples like Britain becoming like Albania as a part of a trading partnership going forward. I'm not so sure that many people in Clacton-on-Sea or anywhere else in the United Kingdom want to have the Albanian model as their future direction.
Now, some commentators are arguing that the uncertainty surrounding the Brexit vote could actually drive foreign investors to Ireland instead of the UK, which would ultimately benefit our economy. Where would your stance be on that?
There will be some modest increase in foreign direct investment into Ireland as a result of people saying, well, look, we need to be in an EU country. But there are 27 other EU countries who will all be claiming their piece of that action. And the much respected National Economic and Social Research Institute has calculated that there's a much greater likelihood that because of a weakening of the UK economy, the future for foreign direct investment in Ireland cannot be assumed to be more positive than it might be today. There'll be some movement in things like financial services, that's granted, but overall the net effect for Ireland is materially negative.
Now, aside from Brexit, John, what are the other issues facing members of the British Irish Chamber of Commerce?
Well, I think, at the present time, Karl, you've got a situation where the most important thing for Ireland is to reform a functioning government regime for the benefit of all. And we wish well the people who are locking down that process right now. Politics is tough for politicians, but that's the game, and people respect that they stood for office, and we wish them well now in bringing forward a viable government, so that we remove the uncertainty that I spoke about earlier on, that's the constant concern of business, and so that we can deal with getting on with growing the economy, growing investment and growing jobs.
For the benefit of any business owner listening to this morning's show who might be considering exporting to the UK, whether that's professional services or products, what advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing is I would say to people, believe and go for it. There's really no reason why any venture that expands into, as I say, the next country as easily as the next county can't believe it can be successful. And not least at the present time, the quality of work coming out of Ireland in goods and services is just outstanding. You know, the Tube Crossrail extension in London is lined with 34,000 concrete panels made in Ireland. Who'd have thought that we could achieve such wonderful successes against huge competition globally, let alone locally. So we have the ability to produce the goods and the services that people in the United Kingdom want. As I said yesterday, we hosted yet another trade mission inbound for UK traders to find Irish trading partners. And people like the British Irish Chamber of Commerce, working with Enterprise Ireland and UK Trade and Investment, Tourism Ireland, Board BIA, everybody else in those facilitated spaces are geared to help you to develop your business in that way. As ever, it's always good to take good advice. As ever, it's always good to not overpromise and underdeliver. But my constant guidance to people would be lift your sights and people will come and help you to achieve your objectives.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.